There we are. We're
There we
finally
are.
live for everybody. We have 69 viewers. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the delay. Deanne and I did have a rehearsal this afternoon, and
Absolutely.
to check all this technology worked. But you know, we're all learning about technology in this time. So Deanne and I actually started. We thought we were starting broadcasting, but actually we hadn't. We were just doing it to each other. So we had a little practice.
You've had a little chat, haven't we?
Yeah. Anyway, good evening.
Good evening, Captain Birdseye. What's with the
Yes,
beard?
you're probably wondering who this guy is with this white beard, but yeah, what's happened is I had a haircut which my wife kindly did for me. Yeah, and cut it, and she made a good job of it. But I had a bit of stubble, and I thought I'll shave that, and she said, "Oh, I quite like it." Hang on a minute. Very important part of this evening. I've just been handed my gin and tonic. I hope everybody's got a drink with them.
It's a bit late though.
It's a bit late. Oh, there you go. Yes. So cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Yeah, the double sort of grew into this. I've never had a beer before, and I think that eventually it will come off, but I'm sticking with it for the time being.
Okay though.
And you know, I never know. I might, if you know they're going to have Santa's this Christmas, maybe I'll get a new job.
You could do.
You never know. Yeah,
that could be a quite a good shoey, really. So, Mike, it's lovely to be talking to you tonight.
And you.
And welcome to everybody who's watching us as well. And thanks for joining us. It's
that's great.
Been quite a technical, interesting afternoon, I think. But
yeah, we had everything set up. I had a microphone set up, and sadly, that's not working now. So we're going to have to. We're dealing just with the iPad sound. So I hope everybody can hear clearly. And
yeah,
when I play, that it's not too duff quality.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have some great stories from you. I think some anecdotes. I hope some fun. Talking to you about your career, which I'm really looking forward to hearing, and also a few little blasts along the way.
Yeah, great.
But I mean, these are unprecedented times, and for you more than most, with losing your dad to this terrible virus.
Yeah,
it's tell us a bit about that for you, Mike.
Well, you know, my kind of change in life really happened. I went into London to deputise on the Book of Mormon just before the start of lockdown, and I got into the West End. I actually drove all the way in, and I parked really easily and went to the theatre to get set up, and you know, I was told that the show had been cancelled because of COVID-19, and I actually thought at that point, I thought, well, maybe this is something that'll be over quite quickly, but of course, we now know that this is going to go on, especially for us in the entertainment business, for a long time to come yet. And, you know, 2 weeks after that, my dad had just celebrated his 90th birthday. He was in a care home in Cheadle, Staffordshire, which is where I was born and raised. And sadly, he got COVID-19. And when he was actually quite in distress with breathing difficulties and what have you, he was rushed into hospital and sadly passed away 2 days later, just a couple of weeks after his 90th birthday. So yes, it's been real for us in our family.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you know, my dad was my musical hero. Everything that I did was through him, really, and he was a great music teacher, and I was really, you know, I was really privileged that I had him as a music teacher, let alone as a dad. And yeah, I'm going to miss him a lot.
Of course you will, absolutely. His legacy will live on.
Yeah, yeah, it will. And you know, I've since you know, we had a very small gathering around the graveside, and we buried him, and had a lovely friend who used to be the vicar here in Potton End, where I live, and she came up, Penny Nash. Hope you're watching, Penny. she came up to do a small service next to the graveside, which was really lovely and made.
Yeah.
It was actually very special. It was a very special time. And what was really lovely when we left from my parents' house, you know, Dad in the hearse, the street was lined with people, and they, of course, socially distanced, but they clapped the hearse and all of us as we processed up to the graveyard. Very
special memories for you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You. Yeah.
And yeah, so actually tomorrow I'm going to travel up there to go and because this weekend is actually my mum and dad's wedding anniversary. They would have been celebrating 62 years. They celebrated up to 61 years of marriage, which is quite amazing.
Absolutely.
Here's to them.
Yeah, here's your mum and dad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you obviously, your dad was a fabulous musician, and you grew up in a household that was full of instruments and things. So why the trumpet in the end?
Well, yeah, my dad, being the kind of guy he was, when he started his teaching career off, it was before the days when peripatetic teachers went into schools to teach children instruments, specialist teachers. And so Dad wanted to get a school orchestra together. So he decided to buy up instruments. And so, you know, in our house, we had a trumpet, we had a flute, we had a clarinet, we had a piano, we had an electronic organ, we had all these instruments. And Dad learned how to play them so he could teach them to the kids. By the end of his career, he had a 75-piece school orchestra in one school, and it was kind of well known throughout the county that it was a really fantastic thing that happened for children. And so I remember a trumpet being in the house, and it was in one of these old-fashioned cases that was a bit like cardboard, really. You could actually push your finger through. I remember there was a little hole in it, and it had a smell about it. And in there was an old Selma trumpet, which I'd quite like to see. I don't know what happened to that trumpet, but I'd like to see it now.
Yeah.
But actually, I was drawn to this instrument because originally I wanted to play trombone, but my arms weren't long enough. So I was drawn to the trumpet, and then I went shopping with my mum to the local supermarket, the first big supermarket in the area, and they had a carousel with records on it, and on this carousel was a record of Eddie Calvert, the man with the golden trumpet, and there he was on the front cover going like this with his trumpet. And I said to my mum, "Can I have that record, please? I'd really like to hear that. It looks fantastic. Can you buy it for me?" So she spent 99 pence on this album. Somebody said to me recently that your mum never would have realised the significance of that 99 pence. Because when I got home, the record went on, and, it was one of those radiograms that you open the big lid and the record went on, the arm came across and the record dropped down. And I got the trumpet out and I tried to play along with it. I didn't have a clue how to play the trumpet, but I tried to play along. I just played, maybe pressing the odd valve down. And that was my beginnings of playing the trumpet. Eventually, I did take lessons at the school that I was at. In fact, I used to go from the primary school where I was to my dad's school and get lessons with the peripatetic teacher that eventually started teaching brass there, a guy called Ron Farger, he's a friend on Facebook. I don't know whether you're watching, Ron, but thank you for everything that you did for my playing in those early days.
And from us, as your fans.
Yeah. And so, I had lessons with Ron, and eventually I was 14. I was interested in two things: cycling and playing trumpet, playing music. And one September evening, I came home from school, and it was either go up to my room, put a record on and try and play along with it, because that was the thing that I did. I imagined I was having these concerts in my bedroom. I was at the Albert Hall doing a concert or whatever. And so it was either do that or go out on my bike. And this particular evening, I decided to go out on the bike.
Right. Yeah.
And I got to with a friend of mine. I got to a country lane with a T-junction. It was like 9-foot high hedges either side. I couldn't really hear any traffic coming. My friend went across, and he said, "Wait, there's a car coming." And there was sure enough, there was a car coming from the left, from my left. But what I didn't realise was there was also a car coming from the right, and he was coming very fast, and they couldn't pass. So they were heading on for each other. And so the guy coming down the road decided that the best way of avoiding hitting the car coming up was to drive into me. So I was knocked off my bike. I lacerated my top lip. It was hanging down my face. I lost a bit of that. I lost teeth in the bottom. I lost teeth in the top. And for me, that was the end of, it was going to be the end of playing. But luckily that evening, I went to the North Staffs Hospital and they put my lip back together. I didn't have any teeth in the bottom, and this was September. By Christmas, I was playing in my dad's Christmas carol concert at school with no teeth. I don't know how I did it. It must have sounded terrible.
But that determination has driven you on, of course, throughout your career.
Yeah, it's something that has always been at the back of my mind. In fact, I think it made me try harder, you know, and I never think nowadays that I'm, you know, that's been something. Oh,
yeah, I've noticed that.
It's all right. Yeah, button my shirt up.
Please.
Sorry about that. I have actually lost some weight. You didn't say that. All you said was about I put weight on my face and
no, it's just the hairiness.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never thought, oh yeah, you know, what if I hadn't had that accident? Because
yeah,
it was part of my development. I look at it like that, and it made me try hard, and it's made me learn more about how we play one of these things, you know. And it's helped me with the very important part of my life now, which is, I suppose, carrying my dad's legacy on, which is teaching.
Yeah.
And
yeah, of course.
I do try and help not only, you know, young students who are maybe decided to take music seriously as a career, and that maybe they're at university or at, you know, my main teaching is at the wonderful Royal Academy of Music in London, and you know, I'm very proud of my association with that particular conservatoire. But you know, it's very important to me to pass on the things that I've been lucky enough to glean from playing in various situations, but also from a blowing point of view, from what I've learned through the difficulties I've had with my chops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's obviously a very important thing, playing a brass instrument.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you trained as a classical trumpeter, didn't you? So what did you think
Yes.
Where did you think your career might go at that point then?
Well, when after the accident, I eventually got some teeth put in the bottom, which was kind of necessary really to play properly.
Yeah.
And I managed to take my grade 8 and get a distinction with it just in time to apply for music college. And I actually went to study at a place called Trinity College of Music, which of course still exists now. It's called Trinity Laban. They have dance there as well. And at that time, I was excited about trying to audition there because they had a big band. The big band was an extracurricular thing. There weren't any jazz courses in these conservatoires at that time. So I decided that I really wanted to go there because of this big band. And also because the main trumpet professor there, who I eventually had as a teacher, was a guy called Norman Burgess. And Norman had been principal trumpet of the BBC Concert Orchestra for about 18, 20 years, something like that. And at that time was in the BBC Symphony Orchestra. And so for me, it was the perfect place to go because they had a big band. I had classical trumpet lessons from somebody who played light music in an orchestra as well. And so for me, I was doing a bit of everything. I wanted to carry on with this, you know, in my bedroom. I used to play along with the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Then I'd play along with the Philip Jones Brass Ensemble. Then I'd play along with the Sid Lawrence Orchestra. Then I played all sorts of music right there in my bedroom. And I wanted to keep trying to be versatile. And that's something I've tried to maintain throughout my playing life. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. It's quite difficult to be accepted as a trumpet player in classical, jazz, and orchestral, you know, kind of repertoire.
I think that's interesting because I've mused an awful lot to people, anyone who will listen about you, and told them about you, and they say to me, well, what music does he play? And I do struggle with that sometimes. I don't know quite how to describe you. So how would you describe your sound or what you do?
I just try and play the trumpet in the style that I think it should be played for the music which I'm playing. I don't know whether that makes sense. I'm very into the song aspect of playing music, and that music is something to share. That's what's so hard about this time now, is that, you know, on a Thursday night I go and stand outside our house here and play for the neighbours, and and for me that's been a lifeline, because, you know, it's all very well sitting in a room practicing. It's about sharing what you do with people. You know, that's how we met, from you hearing us, you know, playing in a concert. And not only that, of course, playing alongside other people. But for me, it's about portraying a feeling across to people. It might sound corny to say that, but that's what it's about. It's about trying to touch the people that are listening to you. You know, it's not, you don't play for yourself. This is, you know, maybe occasionally you do, but it's like what we're doing now. It's like having a conversation with somebody. So to describe my playing, how I try and think that I play, is to be versatile, stylish, and to say something to people.
Well, you've mentioned about how we met, which was through the John Wilson Orchestra, and of course you've been principal trumpet there for 25 years now. So how did you get involved with John and the orchestra?
It goes back to a concert which took place at St. John Smith Square. John was doing a concert which I think maybe it might have had Beethoven in the program or something like this.
Okay.
And we also did some music by the fabulous Robert Farnham, the late Robert Farnham, who I was a massive fan of. So it was great to do that. And he was there, actually met him. But how I got involved in that concert was through a French horn player called Dan Anthony. I don't know whether Dan's watching, but Dan was asked by John Wilson, did he know of a trumpet player who could maybe, you know, cross over what we've just been talking about?
Yeah.
And Dan said, yeah, I know the guy. It's a guy called Mike Lovatt. And that was the first time we worked together. And then I remember a concert that John said, you know, he'd been using a string orchestra, which he used to play down at was not at the Grosvenor House. It was down at.
I thought it was Grosvenor Hotel, wasn't it?
Grosvenor Hotel, that's it. Yeah. And he used to have a regular spot there on a Friday night or something. And he said, I've been using strings down there, but I'm getting a big orchestra together, and we've got a concert at the Festival Hall, and we're going to play some of the MGM repertoire. And I thought, wow, I don't believe that this is actually happening, that I'm going to be playing something of an orchestra style that I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I was just flabbergasted, and we went along and did this thing. And I just remember after the concert, you know, John called me up more than once to say how excited he was about the orchestra, but about the way that the brass were sounding. And of course that was, you know, probably if we heard that now, in fact somewhere I do have a recording of it, but it would sound very raw. And,
yeah.
You know, in the time that the John Wilson Orchestra has been together, it really has shaped over the last, as you say, sort of 25 years into, you know, probably the last time most people heard it was at the proms last year, when I actually think, you know, regardless of what music we were playing, I actually think it was at the peak of what it's, of how it's played all along. You know, the style, the class, the kind of, John always uses a word, keep the lid on it. You know, it's something that's not overdone. It's because if you overdo it, it starts to sound corny.
Yeah.
Everybody is playing the best they can because they like the music, and that comes across when people listen to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
They respect the extreme, fantastic talents of John, and his vision and his sound that he's got on his head, and everybody respects that, and they want to do it for him, and that's why that orchestra went to, you know, how it was. I'm just noticing actually that hi Gary Bavona over in America. Gary's dad was the brilliant and fantastic Gus Bavona, who was, of course, the lead alto player with the MGM Studio Orchestra. So,
oh,
hi.
Fabulous!
Yeah,
welcome.
That's great to see.
I'm glad you joined us.
So
I was going to say, do you think it's a little bit? Is it time now for a little blast of something? People have been listening to us for a little bit of a while, but
yeah, okay.
I'm
well,
going to ask you about
the sound's not going to be as good as we had this afternoon because for some strange reason the interface hasn't connected to the iPad like it did this afternoon. So we're on iPad sound.
Yeah, you dropped the iPad, didn't you, this after we?
I dropped the iPad, yeah, which doesn't help.
Be honest.
I thought that actually, just to connect with what we've been talking about, we mentioned my mum and dad's wedding anniversary, and we've been talking about the MGM Orchestra. In that wonderful film High Society, which of course was recorded by the MGM Studio Symphony Orchestra, there was that wonderful song called True Love, which I think Bing Crosby sings on a boat, and there's a bit of a squeeze box at the beginning. When my mum passed away last summer, I thought I'd like to play something at her funeral, but sadly I didn't think that I'd be able to actually do it without sort of, you know, breaking down. So I decided that I would record it. And so I thought, right, okay, accompaniment. What can I use as an accompaniment? Who can I get to accompany me? And of course, the immediate thought was, oh yeah, let's just get a piano, get somebody to record a piano. But actually, in the end, I suddenly thought about the wonderful talents of who I think is one of the world's greatest guitarists, and that is Martin Taylor. And a bit ago, I did see that Martin was watching. So if you're still there, Martin, thank you for this. Martin, I asked him if he would record a guitar accompaniment to this song, True Love. And Martin recorded it at his home in Scotland, and I recorded it down here. And he, you know, he just sounds amazing on it. And we played it at my mum's funeral. So I've actually got Martin in my speakers. Hope you don't mind, Martin. So we're just going to give this a little whirl and see how we get on.
Fingers crossed.
So this is True Love with the wonderful Martin Taylor.
Thanks, Mike. That was fabulous.
Can you hear Martin okay?
Yes, we can hear Martin fine, thank you. Can still hear Martin all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
There we go.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that. I hope the sound wasn't too bad.
No, it was fine. Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
I did a thing the other night, actually. It was on the City of London Symphonia web Facebook page with my wife, who does a fantastic mindful music meditation. And at the end, normally there's a nice piece of music to accompany that. And we played this piece, and I was playing the piano, and we thought it sounded lovely in the room, and straight away afterwards, everybody said the sound was terrible. It was all distorted, and as soon as Anne played the violin, it just went, like this. So if anything like that was going on, I apologise to you all.
Yes, well, hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Should we talk about people you've played with? And I mean, I know when you played with the John Wilson prom, the legendary proms, you worked with Seth MacFarlane, who is legendary for Family Guy and the TED films, which I love. You went to with him, weren't you, recently? The concert never was. No,
that's correct. A few years ago Seth was on that very first prom, and it was actually the wonderful drummer with the John Wilson Orchestra, Matt Skelton, who just before that time of doing that prom in 2009, he sadly his mum was very ill, and he found some kind of solace and some distraction in watching Family Guy.
Oh, right.
And at the point where it was decided that this prom was going to take place, and they needed somebody to be like this kind of Sinatra chap, the Sinatra guy. And Matt said to John Wilson, well, there's this guy in America who does this fantastic sort of comedy cartoon series called Seth MacFarlane, and he sings great, So John sent Seth some of the recordings of the orchestra, and he couldn't believe that there was this orchestra in London playing in this style, this kind of full-on Hollywood orchestral style.
Yeah.
And so Seth came and he did the show, and of course he then carried on a big relationship with the orchestra. And of course, when you play a trumpet in an orchestra like that, you do get featured quite heavily. And he heard me play, and he liked it. He used to say that the trumpet player that he really loved working with in Hollywood was a guy called, I've just forgotten his name now. That's good, isn't it? It'll come back to me in a minute. There's a fantastic trumpet player that used to work with Seth all the time, and the likes of the amazing Wayne Bergeron and people like that who work with Seth in Hollywood. But Seth decided that he liked the way that I played. He liked the sound that I made. And I got invited to, first of all, to go and do a concert out in Washington with the National Symphony Orchestra. And, you know, Seth has his rhythm section of Peter Erskine and Chuck Berghofer, the legendary double bass player, you know, who was like Sinatra's bass player. Wonderful player, wonderful guy. And an amazing piano player called Tom Ranier and I got invited to go over. So I went and did this concert, and I went back again to San Francisco the following New Year to do a New Year's concert with the San Francisco Symphony, taken in as a lead trumpet player to kind of bring what I bring to that. So this last New Year's Eve, I was supposed to be going to San Francisco again to play with the same orchestra, a New Year's Eve concert, all organised. And sadly, even though I did a mad dash down to London to the embassy to try and get my A1 visa sorted out, it didn't arrive in time. So sadly, I couldn't go. So
yeah.
I spent Christmas wondering whether I was going to go or not in case the visa turned up. And then, of course, it didn't. So I didn't go. But Seth is such an incredible guy. You know, everybody knows his talents. He's whatever he turns his hand to, it's just brilliant. We've done several albums in London with him, arranged by different people. Joel McNeely, his brilliant MD and musician, you know, composer, arranger, you know, has been over to work with us over here to do precisely that. And also the incredible Andrew Cotty, our own very brilliant composer, arranger, Andrew Cotty, who lives up in Scotland and, you know, has been over to write for Seth's series called Orville. I don't know where.
Oh, yes, of course.
So, yeah, that's you know, Seth's association with us in London carries on. And
you'll be continuing that, I guess, will you?
Yeah, and I think there's, as far as I know, there's an album which is in the can, which was done about 3 years ago, which actually there's more than one album in the can. So maybe during this lockdown, Seth might have time to get those finished off, and there might be some new album releases.
Fabulous.
He's a wonderful guy. I love him to bits.
Yeah. Okay. He's not a member of our Facebook page, though, is he?
He's not. No. He's on Twitter. He does a lot of twitting or tweeting, whatever you call it. Yes.
He's a member of our page.
Yeah.
So some quick fire questions now.
Yeah.
You've been on tour an awful lot with different people. What's the worst gig you've ever done?
The worst gig. That's the hard one. How quick can I be back with that? There's been a few. I think it's probably, it was actually quite a grand gig, but it was worse from the point of view of the cold and the wet.
Right.
And when there was the flotilla on the Thames.
Oh, yes.
For the Queen's, what was it? The
Diamond Jubilee, was it?
Diamond Jubilee. The Queen's Diamond Jubilee. I was one of the many musicians booked to play on one of the boats, and it was a really, really cold day. And yeah, it was, from that point of view, it was really terrible. But I mean, playing outside is really hard. My hat goes off to people like the wonderful service bands we have, like the Marines, and the Army, who play outside all the time, and they don't think anything of it. But I know how hard that is. But yeah, that was quite a miserable day. And I remember eventually the boat pulled in somewhere near Canary Wharf, and we got off and headed straight to the nearest pub to get some warming brandy or something to, because that was the other thing on that day, that we weren't allowed to drink anything. The bar was shut on the boat, so we were there captive all day without a drink.
That's not like trumpets at all, is it? You've told me a great story about boats before, but we'll keep that one for another time, I think.
Okay.
Have you ever taken a souvenir from a tour or a hotel when you've been away, and not your dear wife, because you met her, didn't you?
A souvenir? You mean illegally taking a souvenir?
Well, just, you know, sort of
I actually
put something in your bag.
I played one of the bands which I played in after college was a band called the Gramophones, which is like a 1930s dance band, and it was quite successful. We did all sorts of things, and it was run by a guy called Graham Dolby, another friend on Facebook. Hi, Graham. And you know, he got this band together. He was a great singer in that style of, you know, that kind of crooning style of the 30s. And we started to do quite a few gigs for royalty. And I suppose the high point of that work was working at Buckingham Palace.
I know what's coming now.
and I hope I'm not going to get thrown into jail for this or something. But I remember going along to do this gig, and I mean, the whole royal family was there. You know, Diana was there, Charles was there, there was the Queen. There was, you know, it was amazing. But and we were playing in the ballroom, and I remember we got there, and there was nowhere to sit. You know, we're waiting at the side, like some anteroom by the side of the ballroom, and the only places to sit were these kind of gold chairs. So we sat down on them, and Prince Philip came in and he started chatting to us. It was great. It was really nice. And he went off, and then this guy came in and he said, What are you doing sitting on that chair? I wouldn't even allow my staff to sit on those chairs, let alone musicians. So we got taken to somewhere for dinner before we actually did the ball that evening. And I remember there were these little teaspoons with ER on them, and I put one in my trumpet case.
I thought you were going to say you took some toilet paper, but that's what everyone else seems to.
Well, I think people, that's what they do at the beginning of lockdown. They take toilet paper. Yeah. What was all that about? Why toilet paper?
I don't know.
Do people use the toilet more when they go into lockdown?
No. Well, I don't know. It's a bit weird. And rice. And
rice, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've got into during the lockdown actually is I've got into making scones or scones, whichever way you like to call it.
So tell me, when is it a scone and when a scone?
Well, when you make them, it's a scone. When you've eaten them, it's a scone.
Oh, you spot my joke now. That's my best joke. One of my best jokes.
So yeah, I've been making those, and
wow.
Anybody that's interested in baking during this time, just do the Nigella Lawson recipe, because it just beats all the rest. I've tried them all. Nigella Lawson, Lily scones or scones, just try them. They come up lots of cream of tartar, which makes them rise. Plain flour. There you go.
Okay, are you cream and then jam, or the other way around?
Jam and then cream.
Oh, that's Devon. No, that's Cornwall, isn't it? Might be allowed.
I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Well, if they're hot, it's just butter. Fine.
Have I asked you the funniest thing that's ever happened when you've been on tour, or did I ask you that just now or not?
No. The funniest thing.
Please, we want a funny story.
A funny story. I'm trying to think of one. Well, of course, when we're on tour with the John Wilson Orchestra, when we've been on tour with them, there are normally two coaches for the orchestra, and you know, we have what's affectionately known as the party bus, and the other bus is the library bus.
The library bus.
Okay. Yeah, which bus do you think I'm on?
Oh, the party bus. The
party bus. Yes, we're on the party bus.
Oh, the back seats.
Every year that happens, there is normally a day which we call Christmas Day, and it's normally when we have the longest journey. So we might have done a gig in Scotland the night before, and we might be coming down to, say, Nottingham on the way back home, Nottingham or Birmingham or somewhere like that. And it normally involves fancy dress. Okay. So the last tour which we did, which was a couple of years ago, because we were playing a lot of film music, the party was decided that the fancy dress was going to be film characters. Now, in this concert, we finished the concert every night with E.T., which, you know, I think is probably John Williams' greatest score, really, for his films. And I loved playing it. And so immediately I thought, okay, I'm going to do an E.T. character. I'm going to be E.T. So how can I do this? So I printed out an ET face off the internet on paper, and I stuck it on some card, and I put some little things on, and I put it on like a mask. I thought, well, that's not very good, is it? Just that. So then I thought, right, and I forget a sheet, and I put it round the mask and sort of fasten it to the mask, so you can't see my head or my face or anything, just the mask and the sheet, and put it right over me. I got a little torch that had a red light on it, so I could put it through the sheet. And then I decided that I'd make a box, get a box, and I'd make it look like a crate on the bike, and I put some braces on the box. So I stood in the box, got rid of made two holes in my feet, stood in the box, tucked all the sheet in the box. So it looked, even though I was stood up, it looked as though I was E.T. sitting in the box. That's not particularly funny, but
well,
maybe it's something.
It is if
I'll
you've
post
seen
a picture of it.
Because I've seen those pictures and I did not know it was you. I'm going to go and have a look again.
And it was great when we were leaving the hotel in Glasgow, because you had to come down that morning, you know, in your costume. And then I thought, how am I going to get on a coach with this box around me? And I was sort of getting caught. But yeah, I got into the foyer of the hotel and everybody's going like, who is that in there? And I'm just going like, E.T. phone home, E.T. phone home. Yeah. So yeah, we had so much fun on those tours.
I'm sure you did. You worked hard, but you played hard.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Everyone
absolutely.
was really focused on those, on those concerts. But yeah, good fun.
In fact, on that tour, I'm just going to play a tiny little snippet of something, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I know that it's probably your favourite number.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so there's no backing on this. iPhone sound. Okay, here we go.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's all right.
I think
why is this on low power?
I think that was just fabulous. Thank you. And
it's all right.
I had a bit of a weird face on that one. But you do now.
I had a weird face. I'm just adding some power to this thing because that's why my microphone isn't working, because that lead's obviously knackered. Okay, no problem.
So let's talk about 56 Degrees North, the fabulous album that you released in 2018, and narrowly missed out on an award for, which I was gutted for you. So it was the first of more, maybe?
Yes. First of all, I'll just tell you a bit about 56 Degrees North.
Please do, yeah.
Any of you that wonder why it was called 56 Degrees North, is the reason for that is that basically this whole idea of doing this album with a brass band came about shortly after my father-in-law passed away. So as a subtle tribute to him, he was actually born, he's a Scottish, he was Scot, and he grew up in a place called Crossford, which is in Fife. And, you know, the rough coordinates of that place is 56 degrees north. So it was a subtle little tribute to him. And, you know, the idea of doing this brass band album came through a friend of mine who is a trombone player, and he actually conducts Amersham Band, which I'm one of the vice presidents of Amersham Band. And
Paul
he
Fisher.
said, yeah, Paul Fisher.
Let's give a shout out to Paul. He's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul's an amazing musician, great guy. And he said, have you thought about doing an album with a brass band? And I said, what, brass band? And I heard Foden's play, and I just couldn't believe, the technical ability of them playing, the actual feeling that they all played with, the sound that band makes. You know, there's lots of amazing brass bands. You know, this country, it's really where brass playing. It's why brass playing sounds good. You know, all my favourite trumpet players from the UK all played in brass bands. You know, the amazing Maurice Murphy. You know, the great Maurice Murphy, one of my ultimate heroes. One of the greatest lead trumpet players there's ever been in the world, Derek Watkins, also grew up in the brass band world. So you got all these people, and hearing this band play was just it's almost made me cry. You know, it was not because it was bad, because it was brilliant. And so I said, yeah, I think you might have something here. But what I'd like to do is, I don't want to do like sort of swing things and have I don't know, a tuba playing a bass line. I want to have a double bass. I want it to sound like a jazz rhythm section.
Yeah.
So I said, so we need to get a whole new load of compositions and arrangements. And of course, the only person that I knew that could really do that was the wonderful Colin Skinner.
Yes.
Who, apart from being one of my oldest and dearest friends, is an incredible musician, one of the greats.
He is.
You know,
yeah,
he's in the great tradition of the arrangers and writers in this country. And so Colin's like, well, I've never written for a brass band. I said, yeah, but you know, and funnily enough, at that time, his son started to play in one of the Amersham youth bands. And so Colin used to go along every week and hear what the bands did, and he looked at some scores, and he got an idea of how brass bands worked. So he wrote a whole load of arrangements, all connected with little parts of my life, and some new compositions, a couple which he wrote specially for me. And, you know, I must say I was knocked out with the result of the album. Like I say, the band are incredible.
It was amazing.
It's an album which has got, you know, some people might say, oh, well, you know, it's not very jazzy or it's not very orchestral, whatever, but it's got feeling in it, which is what I was talking about earlier on.
Absolutely.
You know, it's got some connection with the people that are listening to it.
And you, one of the tracks, you had a connection to the charity Cancer Blows. So tell us a bit about that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know whether Ryan Anthony is watching or listening. Maybe he will afterwards. But I became aware of a well, I already knew about this amazing trumpet player called Ryan Anthony, who is currently the principal trumpet of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Prior to that, he was principal trumpet of the amazing Canadian brass, you know, groundbreaking Canadian brass. And Ryan, about 7 or 8 years ago, got multiple myeloma, and really wasn't given that long to live his life. We're now sort of 8 years on from that. And anyway, in 2015, he decided to do a concert, because all these trumpet players in the world would be saying, come on, Ryan, you know, you can do this. Let's all get together and do a concert. So he did this concert, and he called it Cancer Blows, and it became a big cancer charity in America. And a few years ago, I was asked to go and play in America, in Scotland, in Elgin, with the Moray Firth, the Moray Concert Band. And during that time, talking to their musical director, he said, "There's this piece called Song of Hope," and I listened to it, and it was the recording from the Council Blues concert, and I was completely mesmerized by this piece. The power of this music was just something that really grabbed me, and so I thought, I want to do it on the album. So I asked two of the great trumpet players in the UK, Philip Cobb, who's the principal trumpet of the London Symphony Orchestra, and Gareth Small, who's the principal trumpet of the Halley Orchestra in Manchester, and they joined me with Foden's band. And there was a strange coincidence, because I found out that originally that piece, Song of Hope, which was written by a chap called Peter Meakin, I don't know whether Peter's watching. If you are, hi Peter. And he wrote it originally for Foden's band.
Oh,
and
right.
Foden's, yeah, for Mark Wilkinson, who's the principal cornet of Foden's. And yes, he so it sort of came full circle, really. It was back with Foden's, with us playing. And since this time, I've become a real good friend of Ryan's, and he's an inspiring guy. And so much so that there's going to be a film made about this story, this journey that he's been on.
Brilliant.
I'd like to give him a shout out, because recently he's just had another platelet transfusion, which, so we're really rooting that that's going to help.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's this film which has been put together. They decided to do a worldwide Song of Hope, and I think there was something like 90,000 people that have sent in recordings of themselves playing whatever part of this piece, and it'll be part of the film. So it's become mega Song of Hope. And if anybody hasn't heard that piece, you know, go onto YouTube and have a listen. There's lots of different performances, and there's even a little video which I put together of our recording session. Yeah. As a tribute to Ryan. So here's to Ryan.
Can you give us a little blast of something from your CD?
Well, I can
Who's bringing you in? Who's that?
Second gin and tonic. I can actually give. Why don't I just play you the start of this? I think what gives it this kind of hope sound, this piece, is the intervals. You know, the first entry is this. Let's check what. I thought that mouthpiece felt funny earlier. I'm just gonna get a different mouthpiece. Here we go. Just that first phrase.
That's beautiful.
This kind of, you know, optimism about it, and I think for the time we're in now,
absolutely,
it's a great thing. You know, it's a great thing to listen to.
It is,
because it does give us hope, especially us musicians who, you know, are facing something which, you know, we don't. It's still very uncertain as to when we're going to return to some kind of normality.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
yeah, I mean, what do you think is the future of live music at the moment? It's very uncertain for all of it, but the arts in particular are feeling very, very vulnerable.
I was reading something about, you know, the theatres, not just, you know, the smaller theatres which you'd expect to be struggling a bit more, but even the main theatres that are all dark in London. Yeah. And, you know, we're talking about theatres like the National Theatre, we're talking about the Royal Opera House, we're talking about the Colosseum, all these places, you know, that if it doesn't get back, you know, they're going to struggle to survive. Yeah. And so something's got to be done somewhere, you know, and whether some lobby to the government, it really, these things are, you know, they're all national treasures, and they're things that mean so much to so many people.
They absolutely do. I mean, I've been struggling a lot with things that have been cancelled along the way, you know, over the past couple of months and into the future months have been cancelled. It's bad enough for me as an audience member, you know, but for you as a you know, performer, it must be awful.
It's really hard, and you know, one good thing that's happened during this time is that I think all us musicians, because we miss this performing thing so much, you know, there's been, I'm sure a lot of you have seen all these amazing videos and musical things that have been put together with people miles apart, you know, and somebody clever with technology managed to put them all together.
Absolutely,
and mix
yeah.
them. Some wonderful things going out there, you know, by some great musicians, and people, you know, musicians don't give up easily on things like this. No. They're always trying to go forwards, you know, and you know, it's something that is, I think it's in us, you know, because you have to be like that to be a musician, because you've got to survive. So you've got to keep going. You can't give up. You know, it'd be very easy to go, okay, well that's it. I'll think about doing something else. I know, you know, maybe I will be Santa at Christmas, but it's you know, I want to carry on playing as much as I can.
Absolutely.
So you know, everybody's been doing recording at home and you know and things like that, and I think it's great that that those new things everybody's learning, you know, and the technology, even though you know I've messed it up tonight about the technology, but you know, the technology is incredible, and I'm so glad that we have been able to do this. It's nice for me to communicate to all these amazing friends on Facebook.
So going back to another recording, you know, so have you got any other recordings planned for us? We've had a question.
Oh yes, okay.
From our dear friend Louise, who says, any plans for another recording? What would you be on your playlist?
Okay.
So yeah, tell us about that.
Well, actually, that's something that has been in the pipeline for a while, but in the last few weeks, I've actually gone, right, we're going to do this. And I've always wanted to do this, and that is to do a big orchestral album as a soloist with, you know, fantastic, lush arrangements. It'll be, you know, there might be a bit of swing on there. It'll be mainly, you know, tunes with, like I say, brilliant, lush arrangements with the likes of Colin and Andrew Cotty. And I've got a friend who in Los Angeles called Nan Schwartz. Don't know whether you're there, Nan, but hi to you. Nan is the daughter of Willie Schwartz, the amazing Hollywood studio musician, legendary Hollywood studio musician. And also, of course, he was the lead alto with Glenn Miller in the Civilian days. And when you hear Moonlight Serenade and you hear the clarinet, that's Willie Schwartz. He was the guy that supposedly in the film took over from the trumpet player who banged his lip with his mouthpiece. Of course, that's not a true story. But that clarinet lead, that's Willie Schwartz. So his daughter Nan, who's an incredible composer and arranger, you know, I've already spoken to her quite a while back about doing some writing for me, and so that's what I'd really love to do. But I do have a few tunes which I've thought about and playing. Shadow of Your Smile will be on there, of course, which I played a little snippet of earlier. That is of course that of course is the original Johnny Mandel score from the film The Sandpiper, and on the film it was played by the legendary Jack Sheldon, who's one of the great trumpet players from Hollywood. A great, you know, he was on TV, comic. He was a great trumpet player, great jazz trumpet player, and he had this haunting, fantastic sound, and that's who you hear when you see that opening sequence of the film with the waves rolling up on the beach, and you hear that haunting trumpet, you know. No, so there's some really nice things. I'm also planning things like Foray, Après un Rêve. So things like that, going to be some new things.
You said to me a while ago that you were thinking about doing a sort of classical CD. So things have changed a bit.
Yeah. I have had the luxury of having a concerto written for me.
Yes.
And I have actually. This was done last year, and I did actually record it with a sampled orchestral backing to try it out, and it's written by a fantastic musician and friend called Mike Shepherd. I don't know whether Mike's watching either, but if you are, Mike, thank you. I've just announced it that it is out there, and he's written a 3-movement concerto for me, which. It's not swingy. It's not supposed to be a jazz concerto.
No.
It's a trumpet concerto, and the middle movement, the central movement, is Hollywood-esque, shall we say? But hopefully at some point that will be recorded, and maybe there'll be some more other classical things on there. I'd like to do that, but as I said to you earlier, I think. It's difficult to be accepted doing that kind of music.
Yeah.
And for somebody to go, oh yeah, let's get Mike Love to do a classical album, because people wouldn't think of that happening.
No. I do get a bit fed up of listening to Alison Balsam though being played on certain stations. I'd love to hear you more than that.
Okay, well write to your local MP.
I will do.
But if what we really want is, I think Song of Hope, when you listen to it, anybody that's out there and hasn't heard it, listen to it. And I'd love for somebody like Classic FM to take it on and play it. And especially in this time, because it has got that hopefulness about it.
It absolutely has, yeah.
Yeah, so anybody there that has got any influence at Classic FM, please get in touch with me, and I'll send you the recording, and maybe they can do something about it.
I'll tweet my mate on Classic FM.
Oh yes.
And Scala Radio.
Oh yes, Scala Radio. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking for over an hour now, and I've got a few more questions I'd really love to ask you. So I hope you're okay to keep going with it.
I'm fine. I don't want anybody that's out there to be bored with this conversation, but like I say, it's really. Oh look, somebody's actually put. Michael Chappell has put Song of Hope is too good for Classic FM.
I agree with you, Michael.
Okay, well, Radio 3 then. Anybody got any connections with Radio 3?
I want to ask you on a lighter note now, that when I met you, the first time I met you was in Harrogate, and I'd been watching you on DVDs, on the TV, and on stuff, and and I was quite in awe of you, and I thought you were amazing, of course. But I can remember the first time I met you. You won't remember this, I'm sure, but I came over and introduced myself after a lot of trepidation. And I said, "Oh, you know who I was," and I said, "You're not as big as you look on the telly." And I think I was in awe of you, because I sort of see you as a celebrity. Do you see yourself that way at all?
Oh, no, not at all. No, I mean, there's always been this thing. That silver-haired trumpet player in the John Wilson Orchestra, and I mean, it through the John Wilson Orchestra, it did kind of get me to be known within the musical world, and for anybody that was into that kind of music, yes, it did make me become more well known within that area of entertainment. But that's how I've always been. I mean, yeah, I'm not as big. Well, did you mean that way or that way?
That way, height way.
Height way. Do you like my shirt?
Sit
by
down
the way?
Now. I know that you can breathe. Stop
do you like
breathing. The shirt's
like
lovely.
Shirt?
It'd be nicer if it met round the middle. You did warn me you're going to do
that. I've got shorts on, yeah. Well, I'm sure that's what they do on the telly.
Yeah. Don't know where to take that one
now. No, so yeah, I mean, that kind of celebrity thing. What I really like is that when we did tours with the John Wilson Orchestra, that people, you know, you walk out into a bar or something afterwards, or by the stage door, and people go, "Hi, Mike," you know, and that's really nice. I don't mind admitting I like that, you know. I like that people know my name, and that I'm not just somebody who sits in the orchestra with a lump of brass in my hand blowing it, you know, that people are into it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does make me laugh an awful lot, and I'm quite proud to be able to say I know someone who's got their own Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I don't know how that came about. I must just say hello to my lovely and talented sister, Sarah, who's just commented on my shirt. She likes my shirt. She likes my shirt, but she doesn't like my beard.
Yeah, well, we've had this conversation, Sarah.
So we'll have a vote on it. Say yes or no whether you like the beard.
Well, it's a little bit hairy around the front. You do look like Captain Birdseye, I have to say.
Yeah, well, maybe it's time for a trim.
Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah, I know Anne doesn't really like it.
So, there we are.
So, you played with some real greats. Who's your favourite to play with?
Well, I can probably think of not one, but two in different spheres of music. And I would definitely say that one of them was the great late American opera singer, Jesse Norman, who I was fortunate to play with, to do a gig with at the Barbican Theatre a long, long time ago, where there was a big band got together to play the music of Duke Ellington, the sacred music of Duke Ellington. He did these concerts. One he did in St. John the Divine in New York. He did one at Westminster Abbey in London, where it was like David Dance. There was all these biblical connotations to the music and the sacred concerts. And Jessie Norman decided that she loved this music and she wanted to do it. So she did it first of all in London, and I got asked to play in the big band. I was fixed in the big band to play, and I played the plunger stuff, There's a number called The Shepherd with plunging it like that, which is something that Cootie Williams used to play. And anyway, Jessie loved this plunger playing. So again, it was a situation where at the end of the concert, she walked up to the back. She was given a bouquet of flowers. She walked up to the back to give her American rhythm section, who we had the great Ron Carter on bass. We had again, equally great Grady Tate on drums, and a fabulous piano player called Mark Markham, who I don't know whether Mark's there, but Mark's just one of the great piano players. He's a classical piano player, but wow, does he know how to make a piano work? I could tell you loads of stories about his playing, just unbelievable. Anyway, she walked up to the back and she gave a flower to the piano, a flower to the bass, a flower to the drums, and then she came right up to the back of where the trumpets were, and she gave me one of her roses. And sadly, it's not up at the moment, but I do have a frame of the program from that with her signature on there, and that flower is pressed into the frame. So that was a special one. So she was, and what I learned from her was, when we play musical instruments, what we're really trying to do, and it doesn't matter whether you play the violin or the saxophone or the clarinet or the bassoon or the trumpet, whatever it is, we're trying to get as close to the human voice as possible. That's what I think, anyway. And she was somebody that really you know, she used her voice like an instrument as well. She used it the other way. But I learned so much from her about phrasing and just, you know, a melody, you know, because she could do it. Listen to the you know, her recording the 4 last songs. It's just, you know, that's one of my Desert Island discs. Yeah, definitely. So she was definitely one, and I would say one of the favourite things that I ever did was in 1996. I was working with the great Derek Watkins on the Des O'Connor Tonight Show. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it used to be a fantastic chat show with a live band. You know, when these shows had live bands.
Yeah.
And Derek and I were the 2 trumpets, and Derek said, "Oh, tomorrow we're going to be starting on sorry, not tomorrow. Next week we're going to be starting on one of the Bond movies." And I said, "Oh wow, it must be amazing to do that." And anyway, 2 days later, I get this phone call. Derek Watkins would like you to join him in the trumpet section to do Tomorrow Never Dies, the Pierce Brosnan Bond movie. And it was at 10 o'clock, you know, Tuesday morning or something. I walked into Air Linda Studios in Hampstead, and there's a massive sort of 85-piece orchestra, and trombones behind the trumpets, and we sat down and we did. Anybody that knows that film, there's a motorcycle chase at the beginning, the BMW motorbike, and we did that sequence. And you know, especially then, let's say 96, these sequences were done in one take. So I mean, a complete take, should I say? So you'd play like quite a lot of music. You know, nowadays they tend to chop stuff up into shorter bits, but then it was like a whole thing. And I will never forget sitting down and playing that music next to Derek and hearing that orchestra play, you know, the classic James Bond theme. And I remember saying to Derek, because I was doing what's called bumping him, so I was sort of, when he needed to maybe just take it off his face and just rest a tiny bit, I'd come in and I'd play. I'd sort of take over for that moment. He didn't need any help; he could do it. He was just maybe being so nice that he got me a gig, basically. But I'll never forget the fact that I said, "So what do you want me to do on this?" He said, "Just play everything." I said, "What, down the octave, which is what you might normally do?" And he said, "No, just play it where it is." So we played, you know, there was 4 of us. There was Derek, myself, the amazing and wonderful British trumpet player John Barclay, and the multi-talented Steve Sidwell, who went on to become musical director for Robbie Williams, arranger of that fantastic Swing When You're Winning album, you know. So that was the trumpet section, and there we were all going, you know.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because the last time I heard you play, well, you played some James Bond for me a couple of weeks ago when we were on a call, and you were playing some theme tunes, and I had to guess what they were. Didn't do very well, but the last time you played that for me was in a bar in Gateshead with a guy who was asleep, and we had a great time. So yeah, tell us about. So you were your lead trumpet on the new James Bond film, which is coming out.
Yes, I was very chuffed to be asked to play on the new Bond movie, which of course is Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond. And the music this time, all of last minute really, was of course composed by, you know, one of the movie composers which everybody sort of knows these days, and of course his work is prolific within the movie industry, and that's Hans Zimmer. And I was asked to play the lead trumpet on the film, which was, of course, you know, something that I've always wanted to do, and I was very lucky to be asked to do it. And you know, there's a whole multitude of trumpet players that could have been asked to do that, and I was asked to do it. So you know, it was a very special thing. It's just sad that, of course, the film was being put back to coming out, and But anyway, it's something to look forward to when hopefully cinemas reopen.
Are you going to have a like to go on the red carpet for it?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know.
Oh, that's a shame.
I've never been invited on. I've been to some cast and crew screenings of some of the films, of some of the movie soundtracks I've played on. And the last one I went to was I played on. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but I played on the Renée Zellweger Judy film.
Yes, I have another question about that. I was hoping you were going to say yes, you're going on the red carpet, and yes, you might need to take a guest. I do have a nice dress.
Yeah.
But of course, the Judy film was a huge thing, and you got a credit on that, didn't you? So
I did get a credit on that, and it was an amazing film to play on. Really, a guy called Matt Dunkley arranged all the numbers for the band, and it was. Having seen the movie, I thought Renée Zellweger did an incredible performance. And of course, she won an Oscar for it.
She did.
And the story of Judy Garland, whatever anybody thinks about it, it's Judy Garland was an incredible performer, and I would have loved to have heard her live. Mm-hmm. But one nice story about recording that film, we had in the band was the wonderful Dave Bishop on saxophone. And we went into the control room to listen to something back, and occasionally you are allowed to do that, and you get to see some of the film. And of course, when you see it like that, there's normally some kind of code all over the top of it, so you can't see exactly what's going on. But it was the scene where Judy Garland's in the talk of the town, and the audience are not happy with her because she's not in a good place. And Dave said, my parents were there that night when that was going on.
Wow.
People were sitting at the tables throwing stuff at her, which is,
unbelievable, really.
Very upsetting, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was lucky to play on that film.
So, do you watch the DVD back, and do you stop it at the point where your name comes up and say, "That's me"?
No, no. If I go to the, I normally go to the cinema. I haven't got the DVD. I went to the cinema to see it, and yes, I always stay to, even if I haven't played on it. If I go to the cinema, I'll stay to see if any musicians are listed. And thankfully, it is slightly more common now for people to have a name check on it. I mean, for goodness sake, how many years have they been putting the guy who sweeps the set? His name goes up at the film, and yet the person who's played trumpet all the way through. I mean, how many people know that it was Maurice Murphy playing on Star Wars movies? Well, only people like us that are interested.
Yeah.
Maurice Murphy kind of single-handedly, made that sound that he gave the sort of the London Hollywood sound, and that's why a lot of film companies came to record in London because of him, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a film which, of course, has been a mega big, massive box office hit, and that is the Avengers Endgame.
Oh yes, of course.
I didn't actually play on the complete soundtrack, but I got asked to recreate Harry James. Oh yeah, don't need to look up who played the soul at the Avengers Endgame. I knew that sound, Mike. Hi Ben Beavers, fantastic trumpet player, who's one of our great army musicians. And he's of course talking about this, which comes at the end of the film.
Fabulous, thank you.
Harry James. So yeah, I was lucky to do that and got a credit at the end of that film. That was with just trying to remember the Alan Silvestri, the amazing again composer of so many of those film scores. You know, Back to the Future and all those films. You know, he composed all those.
You were lead trumpet on 42nd Street as well, weren't you?
I was in the West End.
I'm just bring this in to hear you play a little bit of it for me.
Okay, I'll do that in a moment. There's a little story to this because the show got recorded in recent times. There's been a move to go into a West End show and a film company to film it, and then subsequently for it to be released in cinemas throughout the country. And I think it's a great idea, really. I mean, it brings it to people who can't get to London to see a show.
Yes.
You know, and you know what happens with a lot of shows when they go out to provincial theatres and around the country. You know, the band that was in the West End of, say, you know, if we're lucky these days, sort of 18-piece band gets cut down to, you know, 6 or 9 or whatever. So it's a way of people hearing the show and seeing the show as it was in the West End. And they decided to record 42nd Street towards the end of its run. And I think it was maybe towards the end of last year, it was screened and I missed it. And they decided to screen it again. So we went, and my daughter, who is Emma, hi Emma, is studying dance at the West Herts College. And she loves the dance routines in 42nd,
imagine.
Especially. And so she said, "Dad, it's on again at the cinema." So we went to Watford to go and see the show. And at the end of the show, there must have been only about 40 or 50 people in this little tiny theatre, you know, like screen 58 or wherever it was. And we were like really near the front. And of course, the credits are going up at the end. And like the name of the band goes up, and we just sort of sat there like this. And then at the end of the film, the credits finished, and all these ladies were, you know, elderly ladies were going out of the. Emma just turned round to them all. She said, "I'd just like to tell you that all the way through this, you've been listening to my dad."
Fabulous.
And she said, "And this is him right here," you know. So that was really nice of Emma to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
There was a bit in that show where there was a bit of plungy stuff, and I can't remember. I'll just play a bit of the tune.
Go on then. Oh, fabulous.
Well, that was a great show to do, and also connected with my daughter. She the lovely Claire House, who played the lead in that show. You know, I said to Claire, I said, "My daughter's doing dance. Is there any chance, it's her birthday, is there any chance you can give her a tap lesson?" So between shows, you know how hard those people worked.
Yeah.
Between shows, Wednesday, Anne brought my daughter Emma into the theatre. And, you know, Claire gave Emma a full-on tap lesson and then went and did the evening show. So,
that's brilliant. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, we look forward to seeing Emma dancing away on the stage.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've been talking for quite a long time now. I don't want people to be missing their dinner or whatever. A couple of questions, quick ones. So we are, you know, in this weird position. What one thing can you not live without? And not your family, because that's cheating. All right then.
That's a simple answer to that. And you know, in this time, you know, what I'm going to come out of this with, and here I'm announcing it on Facebook, is I'm making an ebook.
Oh.
And this ebook will be about all my thoughts on how we play one of these things. And through doing that, it's my whole philosophy really on playing, and it'll be something which people can download and have on an iPad or on their laptop or whatever, and it's going to be something that people can dip in and out of, and hopefully, learn something from and help their own playing. We haven't really talked about. I'm sure people have had, questions about playing.
Yeah.
But that's for another time. This is just a nice chat. But maybe we'll do it again and see if we can get some people asking questions about playing. And I'd be happy to answer those. And if anybody has got any questions about playing, please, send me an email. I've got my website, which is www.mikelovatt.co.uk, and there's an email address on there. You can send me an email and ask me what you like. Hi, Mark Wilkinson,
it was
principal cornet of Foden's. Thank you, Mark.
Sorry, you told me there was you'd been talking to some little children recently, and a young boy asked you a very interesting question.
Yes. Yeah, this was
a celebrity.
Yeah, this was last summer. I did a thing with a brass course at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. It was their summer brass course, and I got asked to go and play with this band of young musicians, and we did a question and answer thing, and as I normally do, I like to do those things, and it's very interesting to find out what the kind of things people ask you. Anyway, this little laddie goes, yes, I've got a question. Yeah, okay, what's that? He said, how much do you get paid? And, I thought about it for a minute. There's a big sort of laugh from all the parents that are there. And I said, well, I'm just looking at my watch. My chauffeur's waiting outside in the Bentley, and I've got to get home in time for the my chef has got my dinner ready, and also the jacuzzi's waiting. So that's basically what I said. Yeah, amber gin and tonic.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, it's funny though. I mean, go back to the celebrity question. It's people expect or sort of assume that being live or being semi-famous comes with something else, but it doesn't, it? So really grateful for what you do. Okay, right. One thing you couldn't live without, you asked you that. One thing you've been surprised about that you've missed. You didn't think you would, but you have.
Okay. I've really missed, just actually, you won't be surprised at this. I've really missed my colleagues and I did in hindsight, yes, of course I expected to miss them, but I really missed my colleagues. Because as well as the amazing social thing that we all have as musicians, there is that togetherness which you only get by playing. I don't sound that great on my own.
You're
right. I really bounce off the players that I play with, and that's what I really miss. I miss it more than anything. Yeah. The best thing about lockdown is the fact that I've been, for the last few months, I've seen my wife every day.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's been the best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you got any plans to do anything together?
Well, we'd like to sort of resume traveling and doing things like that. There's a few places. We actually met on a tour in Japan, so in a few years' time, we have a wedding anniversary that I'd quite like to go back to Japan. So I hope that eventually we can do things like that.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you play together as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. Last question, I think. If a film were made about you, about your life, what would be a good theme song for it?
Oh, right, okay. song about my life with a theme song. I know what the theme song would be. It would be With a Song in My Heart.
Okay.
That's what the thing. Not because I necessarily just that title is what, you know, and the lyrics to that song. You know, I don't know whether
is that Mario Lanza?
Yeah.
Give us a tune then.
That's that song.
Yeah. So why that one then, Mike?
Sorry?
Why that one?
Well, just because that's what I think about, you know, what we do. You know, I've got a song in my heart and I want to share it with people. Yeah. That's definitely, you know, that's the sentiment of it anyway. Absolutely. You know, and without sounding too sloppy. I mean, you know, as a trumpet player, people love to hear you play high notes. You know, if I was given £1 for every time somebody said, "Can you play really high on the trumpet?" You know, I'd be rich. But it's high notes are great. They're fantastic. You know, especially in this country, and I'll give him a shout out. There's an amazing trumpet player called Louis Dowswell who, you know, he has the ability in the high register to just make it sound so easy. He's doing incredible things. All of you out there, just have a look at Louis Dowswell and the videos that he's done. You know, he's only about 13 or something, but he's incredible. So yeah, look out for him and what have you. He's brilliant. But you know, that's really not what I do. I try and I like playing tunes on the trumpet, you know, and like I said, a lot of players that I grew up listening to and loved and came out of the brass bands, and that's, you know, you listen to brass band players, they know how to play a tune. You know, when a brass band does a warm up, they play a hymn tune. You know.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Give us one last tune then before we leave.
Okay. Well, what I've got here, I do have the music for this, even though I could probably do it without. And it's from 56 Degrees North, and that album I already mentioned that I had some guest players. We had Phil Cobb and Gareth Small, and the rhythm section I didn't mention of Graham Harvey on the piano. There was also the wonderful Matt Skelton on the drums.
Yes.
And Jeremy Brown, of course, another John Wilson Orchestra player. Yeah. Great bass player. And so, you know, when we did the album, I said to Colin, I'd really like to do like a duet in the style of the Ted Heath Big Band. And in the Ted Heath Big Band, there was a wonderful duo of trumpeters called Bobby Pratt and Bert Ezard. And those two used to do these duets. And I said, Colin, can you do one in that style? Arranged, you know, Johnny Keating used to do these arrangements. And, you know, I said, can you do something in that style? And I want to ask Danny Marsden, the wonderful Danny Marsden, who's also played with the John Wilson Orchestra, and a great friend and a wonderful trumpet player. And I'll tell you a little tiny story before I play it. And that is, when this album came out, you know, my wife Anne, she said, "Oh, I love that If Ever I Would Leave You piece. I really love it." She said, and you know that bit you play there. I said, "That's not me. That's Danny." So she couldn't. She thought that, you know. So that's a compliment to Danny, maybe, or maybe not. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cue this up on this track, and then I'll play it now. What the balance is going to be like for you all, folks, I'm not quite sure. But I'm also accompanied on this, of course, by, I don't know whether any Foden's people are still watching, but you were all amazing on this. If you hear a brass, the band in the back end of this, you wouldn't believe it was a brass band. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
So I need to sort of get this queued up right.
Talk about yourselves.
Okay. I don't want it to be. I want the balance to be right. You might. Oh, hello. Here we go. Danny. Sound okay?
Yeah, it's all right. Mike, that was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deanne. Thanks for asking me to come on here and do this. It's been really nice, and I hope everybody that's watching has enjoyed a bit of an insight into what goes on here at home. And and it's nice to it's nice to communicate with everybody again.
Yeah,
we'll do it again sometime.
Thank you everyone for staying with us and joining with us.
Yeah,
it's
we've still got
longer we thought.
89 people.
We're just chatting away anyway, so.
Yeah.
If you haven't joined us already, then please join in with Mike Lovatt Trumpet Facebook page. to catch up with the news and different things that Mike's doing. You know, maybe we'll do this again.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to. Thanks, Deanne.
Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to save it to our page.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Lovely to see you all. Bye.
Bye. Have
Bye-bye.
a safe weekend.
Bye.
Bye.